We, the people of the internet, don't believe you. Why haven't you done it for the last 5 years? You're the CEO of one of the most powerful companies in the world. You have more money to throw at problems like this than pretty much anybody else has disposed or has access to. I don't know. I'm not hopeful. It's one of those times when I'm not hopeful. I want to be able to trust Mr. Zuckerberg that he really wants to make a change. But if he does really want to make a change, why hasn't he started? Hi, I'm Ryan, and I created Nyched. This week, Facebook released an announcement about the future of their fact-checking program, and I wanted to take a couple of minutes to see what they had to say about it and see what direction they're heading, to see if it's something that is actually beneficial, if it's something that is credible, that we can trust them with, or to find out exactly what Mr. Zuckerberg believes is the future for Facebook.
Hey everyone, I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years.
Yeah, I mean, that Georgetown speech is a pretty good speech. We'll probably take a look at a part or two of it here in a minute, but he was a big supporter of free speech for the most part in what he said in that conversation there. My question is, what happened 5 years ago? Why has there been a widespread kind of downplaying of certain content, it seems? I don't know about you, but I seem to get more ads than anything beneficial on his platforms. All right, let's continue.
There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship.
Yeah, I mean, this is all true, but he's not taking any responsibility. He's blaming fact checkers and people who post on his platform and, governments and whatnot. But that's not his responsibility. That's our responsibility as individuals to make sure that, we're interacting with the content that we want to see. And of course, there's bad stuff out there, like Mr. Zuckerberg said here. There's child exploitation and those types of things that none of us want online and none of us want to interact with. Well, I won't say none of us, because obviously if there weren't a market for it, then it wouldn't exist. But he's not taking any responsibility here. It's his platforms, it's his companies, and he's pushing the blame onto other people.
The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
So again, he's not taking any responsibility. He pretty much says the reason why they're doing this is because it's politically tenable for him to do it at the moment, because the last election essentially created the environment for him to have to shift his business in order to be relatable again, in order to kind of save face. So, I mean, the language he's using and the way he's saying the things that he's saying is pretty much giving away what his perspective is. His perspective is he'll do it as long as he's able to do it because it's politically in in vogue or whatever, at the moment. So I have a hard time believing this and trusting that this is going to last. That what happens when the next regime comes in throughout different countries throughout the world, is it then, are you going to reinstate the fact checkers? Are they there working behind the scenes still and just not publicly being shown in the UI on the front end side of things? I have a hard time trusting this. I want to believe him. I want to believe that this is what he believes in and what he wants for the future, but it hasn't just been the last 5 years. It's been the last 10 years or 15 years that things have been changing ever since Facebook started to come out. Really, it went from a free and open place to share ideas to a very narrow lane that you had to stay in.
Over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms.
Drastically reduce the amount of censorship on our platform. So again, I mean, he's not hiding it. He's not trying to even hide what they're doing. He's talking openly about censoring things and ideas and people. This is maybe a step in the right direction, but again, all the language he's saying and all the psychological tells is pointing towards this is not exactly what free speech is. He talked about how the filters, they make mistakes. Well, of course they make mistakes. A computer program is never going to know, as well as a human being, what is egregious and what is not egregious. Again, of course, we want illegal things and child exploitation and those sorts of things to not be on our platforms. The sane members of society don't want kids to be exploited, don't want people who aren't able to defend themselves to be exploited. We don't want to glorify murder and other illegal things that we as a society have deemed to not be ethical or moral. But at the end of the day, why do you even need the filters? Why do you need that there if you're going to create a program where you can have, community explanations and community reporting there for those types of things? Anytime there's an algorithm, and he's saying filter here, but what he means by filter is an algorithm as well. If he truly means a filter, then somebody behind the scenes is turning the dials. But anytime there's a program, an algorithm, that type of thing in between us and our information, that there's obviously going to be censorship. There's obviously going to be the bias of the programmer put into those things. You cannot have a situation where freedom of expression, freedom of thought, freedom of speech is incorporated into a piece of technology when there is an algorithm there controlling the avenues of information to you and me.
We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed, so we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive.
He's saying the quiet part out loud again, because of how it's culturally acceptable right now and how people are desiring more of this. That's why they're doing this. If the election had gone differently, they probably wouldn't be doing this. He's spoken openly to news reporters and to Congress about how, he was pressured by government agencies to do certain things. And I get it, but it's your company at the end of the day. You've got to take responsibility for it. He hasn't taken any responsibility for his actions and for the decisions of his company. From my perspective, it is not his responsibility to filter out civic content at any point in time, or like he's doing right now, turning the dial back up on civic content. That's our responsibility as the individual. He could just as easily have come out and said, we're creating filters and customizations to put into your hands so that you get to choose what you see and when you see it. Now, apart from taking away the algorithm, you still have the question of, can I trust that that's truly what's happening? But as long as he has controls over the reins, this whole thing so far, he's been saying, I have control over the reins. I'm tweaking the dials so that people will be happy because it's culturally tenable for me to do so right now, not because I have a spine and I believe in free speech. So he's a coward. He kowtowed to the government over the last 4 or 5 years. He did whatever they asked, even though it was a request. He's essentially acting as an arm of the government, which is why, to me, it's a free speech issue. It's a freedom of expression issue. And here in America, that is protected. When you're acting as an arm of the government, you are now infringing on free speech, even though as a private business, I believe that he has 100% the ability to decide how to run his business because he was listening to the government and just doing what they said. Facebook, Meta, all of those brands should not have the protections that they have because they were acting as an agent of the government.
Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams. Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
Yeah, okay, so this is good that he's moving the content moderation teams out of California to get a more diverse workforce, diverse ideological workforce in there so that they have a better bead on what is actually not good content to be up on their platform. Okay, cool. Props to that. It's hard to argue with that. If he's actually moving it out, who knows? Maybe we just hear about it now and we never see any proof of that. But again, I open this up saying, hey, it's hard for me to believe. I feel like over the years, Facebook has kind of burned my perspective on what I wanted for a social interaction platform. Maybe many of you agree with me there too and have felt that way as well. Working with the federal government. Yeah, of course. Like if this is truly what he believes, which let's take him at face value. If this is what he believes, then yeah, the last 4 years have been tough on companies like this. But again, that's where like if this was really his conviction, if free speech was really his conviction, he would have stood by his guns. He would have pushed back against the federal government. There's plenty of stories about the federal government over the last 4 years trying to do certain things and other companies taking things to the Supreme Court to sue the federal government to stop those things that were infringing on our rights. So he just decided to not do that. One of the biggest companies in the world, one of the biggest legal departments in the world, and he chose to not do that. He hasn't taken any responsibility for his actions over the last 4, 5, 10 years. We'll see where it goes. I hope, I want to believe him, but my thought is, we, the people of the internet, don't believe you. I really want to believe you. I want to trust what he's saying here, that he wants it to be better. But why hasn't he been doing it? Why hasn't he done this already? Why didn't he start 4 or 5 years ago when this started to happen? No, I'm sorry. It's much more likely, from my perspective, that he is just going with the winds of change. And right now, if something doesn't change, they're going to lose a lot of market share, I think, is what he's afraid of. Let's check out this clip here from his Georgetown speech.
We're at another crossroads. We can either continue to stand for free expression, understanding its messiness, but believing that the long journey towards greater progress requires confronting ideas that challenge us. Or we can decide that the cost is simply too great. And I'm here today because I believe that we must continue to stand for free expression. We are at a moment of particular tension here and around the world, and we are seeing the impulse to restrict speech and enforce new norms on what people can and cannot say. And increasingly, we're seeing people across the spectrum try to define more speech as dangerous because it may lead to political outcomes that they see as unacceptable. Some hold the view that since the stakes are now so high, they can no longer trust their fellow citizens with the power to communicate and to decide what to believe for themselves. I personally believe that this is more dangerous for democracy over the long term than almost any speech. Democracy depends on the idea that we hold each other's right to express ourselves and be heard above our desire to always get the outcomes that we want. You can't impose tolerance top-down. It has to come from people opening up, sharing experiences, and developing a shared story for our society that we all feel like we're a part of. That's how we make progress. So how do we turn the tide? Well, someone once told me that our founding fathers thought that free expression was like air. You don't miss it until it's gone. When people don't feel like they can express themselves, they lose faith in democracy and are more likely to support populist parties that prioritize specific policy outcomes over the health of our democratic and civic norms. I'm a little more optimistic. I don't think we need to lose our freedom of expression to realize how important it is. I think that people get it and understand and appreciate the voice that they have now. And at some fundamental level, I think that most people believe in their fellow people too. And as long as our governments respect people's right to express themselves, as long as our platforms live up to their responsibilities to support expression and prevent harm, and as long as we all commit to being open and making space for more perspectives, I think we're going to make progress.
Yeah, so this was 5 years ago. This is a very good speech, in my opinion. And when I first heard this, I thought, okay, maybe things are going to change, because I had noticed already the weight of being on most platforms at the time. You couldn't share ideas that bucked against the norm. So again, he was talking about how when people lose their ability to free expression, they don't trust the institutions anymore. Facebook is an institution. Other social media platforms are institutions. We've lost trust in them. We, the people of the internet, don't believe you. Why haven't you done it for the last 5 years? You're the CEO of one of the most powerful companies in the world. You have more money to throw at problems like this than pretty much anybody else has disposed or has access to. I don't know. I'm not hopeful. It's one of those times when I'm not hopeful. I want to be able to trust Mr. Zuckerberg that he really wants to make a change. But if he does really want to make a change, why hasn't he started? This is why we need a new type of platform. This is why we need a new type of option out there, or a new type of category of platforms. Social media is no longer the answer. Social media is a relic of the past. From the turn of the last century, social media is a social media idea. From the early parts of the internet has changed. We have changed. Technology has changed. We need something new, and I don't think that social media has the ability to adjust and to adapt because they're so entrenched in the way that things started. There's no way to untangle their technology and their ideologies from where they're at. Nyched is a solution. I hope to have a lot of different options out there, many different platforms that are similar to Nyched, that eliminate the algorithm, that take away gatekeepers, that don't have the ability for me as the head of the company to even do the things that he is bucking against here in these two clips. Nyched is the world's first human interaction platform, and it is totally within your control. To learn more, go to resistthealgorithm.com. If you like this video, give it a like. If you have something to say on this topic, you agree or disagree with me, please put a comment down below. I would love to talk to you more about this. And if you want to see more, I humbly ask that if this was beneficial to you, that you subscribe and stay tuned because the next video is coming up right now.